Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. JATAKA number 195. Pabatupathara JATAKA. A happy lake, etc. This story the master told while living at Jetavana monastery, about the king of Kosala. We are told that a certain courtier intrigued in the royal harem. The king inquired into the matter, and when he found it all out exactly he determined to tell the master. So he came to Jetavana monastery, and saluted the master. Told him how a courtier had intrigued, and asked what he was to do. The master asked him whether he found the courtier useful to him, and whether he loved his wife. Yes, was the reply, the man is very useful. He is the mainstay of my court. And I do love the woman. Sire, replied the master, when servants are useful, and women are dear, there is no harming them. In olden days 2 kings listened to the words of the wise, and were indifferent to such things. And he told an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the bodhisattva was born into a courtier's family. When he came of age, he became the king's advisor in things worldly and spiritual. Now one of the king's court intrigued the harem, and the king learnt all about it. He is a most useful servant, thought he, and the woman is dear to me. I cannot destroy these 2. I will put a question to some wise man of my court. And if I must put up with it I will. If not, then I will not. He sent for the bodhisattva, and asked him to be seated. Wise sir, said he, I have a question to ask you. Ask it, O king. I will make answer, replied the other. Then the king asked his question in the words of the first couplet. A happy lake lay sheltered at the foot of a lovely hill. But a jackal used it, knowing that a lion watched it still. Surely, thought the bodhisattva, one of his courtiers must have intrigued in the harem. And he recited the second couplet. Out of the mighty river all creatures drink at will. If she is dear, have patience, the river's a river still. Thus did the great being advise the king. And the king dwelling by this advice, and he forgave them both, asking them go and sin no more. And from that time they ceased. And the king gave alms, and did good, till at his life's end he went to the heaven. And the king of Kosala also, after hearing this discourse, forgave both these people and remained indifferent. When the master had ended this discourse, he identified the birth. At that time Ananda was the king, and I myself was the wise counselor. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. JATAKA number 196. Valahasa JATAKA. They who will neglect, etc. This story the master told while staying in Jetavana monastery, about a brother who had become a backslider. When the master asked him if it was really true that he was a backslider, the brother replied that it was true. Being questioned for the reason, he replied that his passion had been aroused by seeing a finely dressed woman. Then the master thus addressed him. Brother, these women tempt men by their figure and voice, scents, perfumes, and touch, and by their tricks and flirtation. Thus they get men into their power. And as soon as they perceive that this is done, they ruin him, character, wealth and all, by their evil ways. This gives them the name of she-goblins. In former days also a troop of she-goblins tempted a caravan of traders, and got power over them. And afterwards, when they got sight of other men, they killed every one of the first, and then devoured them, crunching them in their teeth while the blood ran down over both cheeks. And then he told an old story. Once upon a time, there was in the island of Ceylon a goblin town called Sire, populated by she-goblins. When a ship is wrecked, these adorn and decorate themselves, and taking rice and porridge, with trains of slaves, and their children on their hip, they come up to the merchants. In order to make them imagine that theirs is a city of human beings, they make them see here and there men plowing and tending cows, herds of cattle, dogs, and the like. Then approaching the merchants they invite him to eat the porridge, rice, and other food which they bring. The merchants, all unaware, eat of what is offered. When they have eaten and drunken, and are taking their rest, the goblins address them thus. Where do you live? Where do you come from? Where are you going, and what job brought you here? We were shipwrecked here, they reply. Very good, noble sirs, the others make answer. It is 3 years ago since our own husbands went on board ship. They must have perished. You are merchants too. We will be your wives. Thus they lead him astray by their women's lures, and tricks, and flirtation, until they get them into the goblin city. Then, if they have any others already caught, they bind these with magic chains, and throw them into the house of torment. And if they find no shipwrecked men in the place where they dwell, they scour the coast as far as the river Kalyani on one side and the island of Nagadipa on the other. This is their way. Now it happened once that 500 shipwrecked traders were thrown ashore near the city of these she-goblins. The goblins came up to them and enticed them, till they brought him to their city. Those whom they had caught before, they bound with magic chains and thrown him into the house of torment. Then the chief goblin took the chief man, and the others took the rest, till 500 had the 500 traders. And they made the men their husbands. Then in the night time, when her man was asleep, the chief she-goblin rose up, and made her way to the house of death, killed some of the men and ate them. The others did the same. When the eldest goblin returned from eating men's flesh, her body was cold. The eldest merchant embraced her, and perceived that she was a goblin. All the 500 of them must be goblins. He thought to himself, we must make our escape. So in the early morning, when he went to wash his face, he spoke to the other merchants in these words. These are goblins, and not human beings. As soon as other shipwrecked men can be found, they will make them their husbands, and will eat us. Come, let us escape. 250 of them replied, we cannot leave them. Go you, if you will, but we will not flee away. Then the chief trader with 250, who were ready to obey him, fled away in fear of the goblins. Now at that time, the bodhisattva had come into the world as a flying horse, white all over, and beaked like a crow, with hair like munja grass, possessed of supernatural power, able to fly through the air. From Himalaya he flew through the air until he came to Ceylon. There he passed over the ponds and tanks of Ceylon, and ate the paddy that grew wild there. As he passed on thus, he thrice uttered human speech filled with mercy, saying, Who wants to go home? Who wants to go home? The traders heard his saying, and cried, We are going home, master. Joining their hands, and raising them respectfully to their foreheads. Then climb up on my back, said the bodhisattva. Because of that some of them climbed up, some laid hold of his tail, and some remained standing, with a respectful salute. Then the bodhisattva took up even those who stood still saluting him, and conveyed all of them, even 250, to their own country, and set down each in his own place. Then he went back to his place of living. And the she-goblins, when other men came to that place, killed those 250 who were left, and devoured them. The master now said, addressing the brethren. Brethren, even as these traders perished by falling into the hands of she-goblins, but the others by obeying the behest of the wonderful horse each returned safe home again. So, even so, they who neglect the advice of the Buddhas, both monks and sisters, lay brethren and lay sisters, come to great misery in the four hells, places where they are punished under the 5 chains, and so on. But those who abide by such advice come to the 3 kinds of fortunate birth: the 6 heavens of sense, the 20 worlds of Brahma, and reaching the state of imperishable nirvana they attain great blessedness. Then, being perfectly enlightened, he recited the following verses. They who will neglect the Buddha when he tells them what to do, as the goblins ate the merchants, also they shall perish too. They who listen to the Buddha when he tells them what to do, as the bird horse saved the merchants, they shall win salvation too. When the master had ended this discourse, he explained the truths and identified the birth. At the conclusion of the truths, the backsliding brother entered on the fruit of the first path, and many others entered on the fruit of the first, second, third or fourth. The Buddha's followers were the 250 who followed the advice of the horse, and I was the horse myself. Source: adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 197. Mitamita Jataka. He smiles not, etc. This story the master told while living at Shravasti city, about a certain brother. This brother took a piece of cloth, deposited by his teacher, feeling confident that if he took it his teacher would not be angry. Then he made a shoe bag of it, and took his leave. When this teacher asked why he took it, he replied he had felt confident, if he did, that his teacher would not be angry. The teacher flew into a passion, got up and struck him a blow. "What confidence is there between you and me?" he asked. This fact became known among the brotherhood. One day the brothers were all together talking about it in the Hall of Truth. "Friend, young brother so and so felt so confident of his teacher's friendship, that he took a piece of cloth, and made it into a shoe bag." Then the teacher asked him what confidence there was between him, flew into a passion, jumped up, and gave him a blow. The master came in, and asked them what they were talking of as they sat there together. They told him. Then he said, "This is not the first time, brothers, that this man has disappointed the confidence of his fellow. He did the same before." And then he told an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the bodhisattva was born as a Brahman's son in the realm of Kasi. When he came of age, he renounced the world. He caused to grow in him the supernatural faculties and the attainments, and took up his dwelling in the region of Himalaya with a band of disciples. One of this band of ascetics disobeyed the voice of the bodhisattva, and kept a young elephant which had lost its mother. This creature in due course of time grew big, then killed its master and made off into the forest. The ascetics did his funeral rites. And then, coming about the bodhisattva, they put this question to him. "Sir, how may we know whether one is a friend or an enemy?" This the bodhisattva explained to them in the following stanzas. He smiles not when he sees him, no welcome will he show. He will not turn his eyes that way, and answers him with no. These are the signs and tokens by which your enemy you see. These if a wise man sees and hears he knows his enemy. In these words the bodhisattva stated the signs of friend and enemy. Thereafter he cultivated the excellences, and entered the heaven of Brahma. When the master had ended this discourse, he identified the birth. The brother in question was he who kept the pet elephant. His teacher was the elephant. The Buddha's followers were then the band of hermits, and I myself was their chief.